Hi, soul friends. It's Tannaz Hosseinpour, and welcome back to another episode of the Minutes on Growth podcast. Today, we have a special guest with us, Blaise Kennedy. He is a spiritual teacher and a creator of programs that focuses on the intersectionality of our favorite topics, spirituality and psychology. Welcome.
Thank you for the introduction and for having me on here.
Before we begin, can you share a little bit about who you are and what you do before we dive in?
Yeah, so uh, who I am, I guess I would say that I just turned 40. I'm a father of three. I have young children. I'm married, and I have loved being a householder in this life. I am very much in the world and busy, and also deeply a spiritual seeker. And so I'm kind of like a monk that uh, happened to pick up a family and a job along the way in this lifetime. And I love to teach into that. And so my life path and what I do now are very much related. So I love to teach about human development and relationships and connection. I love to teach about consciousness. And I work with people from all over the world, mostly online, but I run in-person retreats. And I am learning through my life experience and teaching through it. And I learn more every day. I'm happy to share that with you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, for sharing your light, and for sharing your wisdom with us today. So, prior to getting on this call, pressing the record button, we were talking about one of your programs called Developmental Architecture. You shared a little bit about me, and I thought it was fascinating. And if you're open to it, I would like you to share with the audience too about what it is.
Yeah, so uh, I I'm trained as a therapist. I also have a lot of experience with meditation, and there's a really big difference between meditating and therapy. And I would emphasize the difference is when you are meditating, you are on your own. When you're in therapy, you are with someone.
Mhm.
And especially if you do somatic therapy, often people really lean into the fact that we're together. One basic principle is co-regulation, and this is foundational to what parents do with children and how we can support people to move through developmental trauma. So you could think about my approach to teaching as combining these two realities. I think meditation and deep presence and embodiment is extremely important.
Mhm.
And I think if we do that together, amazing things are possible. So the foundation of my work is really teaching people how to enter a place where we are present together. And so where meditation is silence, uh, primarily, the work that I teach that's relational, most of my programming is based on you and I, just like in this moment, being here together, really feeling into that so that in this moment, I can feel myself and I can feel that we are here together. That's the basic foundation that I start everyone with. And this, I think, is what really allows us to see so deeply into ourselves, to feel connection, to access what life is like for us, and to sort of transparently share that with another person. I was very much impacted by one particular teacher named Thomas Hubel, who many years ago showed he had an incredible fluency with this kind of access to life and access to connection. And it very, very much impacted my path. And one of his primary ideas, which is now the foundation of my teaching, is that we can actively move through our whole life proactively. So, a lot of the reasons we go to therapy is because there's some problem that we have to fix.
Mhm.
Something's not working in my life, and then I attempt to fix it. And
Mhm.
that's wonderful. That's very wonderful. That's kind of like if you have a building and something breaks, you have a car and something breaks, and then you like have to figure out why it's not working and how you're going to fix it. Developmental architecture as an approach, it means instead of waiting for something to break in my life, I actively sort of relive and re examine my entire developmental history through my body, through presence, from the beginning of my life up through the process of individuation, the development of my will, and the movement into my sort of higher centers and my higher thinking. And you could think about that. I don't often talk about it as the chakra system. It's sort of like
Mhm.
moving through our body, chakra by chakra, starting in our root, learning to really embody and relate from the root and the base and the foundation of our life up through all the chakras and all the sort of qualities that are present in the body and the intelligence of the body up into the higher centers. And again, we do this proactively. Instead of waiting for something to go wrong, we just actively turn towards every center of the body, every part of development, so that we can really bring our highest potential and intelligence. There's so many reasons why we would want to do this. But one of my favorite quotes that would sort of inform my approach is, again, comes from Thomas Hubel, which is that presence is integrated history. So my
Mm.
whole life is alive in me now. My whole life is present in this moment. I bring everything that has ever happened to me into this moment here with you. And what it means to integrate it means when I feel my whole life, my body is alive, and I bring that as my living presence right now. And so I teach people how to access their whole life through presence and through relating so that they can sort of bring online everything that has happened to them to resolve places in which their development has been formed by scarcity or pain, conflict, where the sort of structure of our nervous system or our chakra system is traumatized or represents lower potential. So again, we proactively move through that whole body system to help develop this presence, which gives us access to consciousness. We do this so that we can bring on more of our qualities online. And we do this actually to prevent crises later in life. We do it proactively for our health and well-being. And so that people have an incredible fluency with their body and their consciousness. That's one of my primary goals, that people have access to everything.
Beautiful. That sounds super empowering, and um, I love how much you emphasized on the relational aspect of it. Is this what you mean when you say that healing doesn't work well as a solo journey?
Yeah, I mean, there are many people who have wonderful healing experiences by themselves. And I think that that's great. And what I have found is that every time in my whole life that I've been around someone who really cares and feels with me, everything
Mhm.
happens faster and better. Now, I was a very, very motivated spiritual seeker, and I meditated a lot. And I found over and over again that when two people who really care about each other and are listening sit together, things move more quickly. And at first, that was kind of a means to an end. I thought, well, if I have all these problems and these things that I need to work through, well, then I'm going to go get help and I'm going to work through it. And the more that I did that, the more that I realized the reason that it works, the underlying principle of why that works, is because what we would call our nervous system actually lives, or our emotional body, even our mental body, all of our subtle bodies actually exist in a fields of interrelatedness. They're not separate phenomena. It's not that I have my thoughts and my feelings and my history. It's part of a sort of a living web of life, like a field of consciousness that we're all sharing. And when you are traumatized, like I have been in my life, you experience that much more separately. Like you feel separate in your experience. But that's not the design. That's not actually the blueprint. That's not the capacity of human experience. The capacity of human experience is a profound interrelatedness, a connectedness. And I'm working backwards. So I started feeling very disconnected and trying to work through my stuff. But the more I did, I realized that I am a part of, my whole being is part of one field of consciousness that's very intricate and beautiful and worth my attention and worth participating in. And so now I realize that if you lean into that reality, everything works better because that's where your body and your mind and your feelings, it's actually designed to live that way. And the best example of that I can give people is the experience of parents and children. So children, they go through growth, and we know that physically, like my kids get taller all the time, but our children go through a whole bunch of sort of emotional and psychological stages, such as developing a will, which I'm seeing in quite joyfully in one of my children. And none of those stages are designed to be experienced by the child alone. They're all designed to be witnessed and scaffolded and supported and cared for by their family and by their parents. And so what I notice in people is the absence of that is a trauma that people experience. People go through their childhood without someone or without a field, a living consciousness that is really present with them. And it's not actually possible for children to have ideal outcomes in alone. Children by nature get overwhelmed. They have trouble regulating their feelings. And all of that content is really designed to be shared with someone who is with them. When that's not possible, we become more self-oriented. It's my job to take care of myself. But this isn't fundamentally true. It's not a child's job or even an adult's job to take care of themselves. They are part of a whole. And it's that whole's job. It's that relational field's job to care for all of us. And so if we take this sort of ideal environment for children, which is that there's someone who is really with them, who stays present with them and can feel what they are feeling and can respond in an attuned way and can hold their experience and support their growth. We can take that ideal environment for children and we can give it to everyone, which is my goal, or one of my goals. What we find is people thrive. People
Yeah.
work through things really quickly, things that people didn't have access to before, they gain access to. Basically like creating that ideal environment for a child, for everybody, all the time, through presence, through relationship.
I really, really, really appreciate that because I often say that we are traditionally tribal people. We thrive in supportive communities. So the importance of that interconnectedness, as you said, that presence, really bringing that sense of relational safety. But here's a question that came up for me as you were sharing is if we didn't have that model to us growing up, that presence, that emotional attunement, uh, how are we able to A, acknowledge its lack of presence in our life, and B, start to shift the way we're showing up for ourselves and for others? How do we cultivate relational safety for ourselves?
That is a great question. And so I start with my own experience because I didn't have it. I mean, I didn't orient towards it at all. And that's a sort of a common theme within trauma is when something is traumatic, there's always a leaving. So trauma could be fundamentally described as an overwhelming experience, something that I can't tolerate. And a lot of that is because there's no one really with me, because it can't be expressed, because I can't share my experience. So there's a leaving that occurs over and over again. I leave my body and I freeze around whatever energy. So when this happens, it's like forgetting. We don't actually know the energy that we're holding. We don't actually know what our trauma is. We only know the symptoms of it.
Mhm.
So later in life, when we seek to find remedy, we're not going to necessarily look for something that we didn't get or that we can't even imagine. So what do we do? Well, what happened to me is I got put into environments where people really cared. I got exposed to fields of care and attunement that I didn't know, I wasn't even seeking. And when I was exposed to that, my body changed. My thoughts changed. My emotions changed. My body is intelligent. It responds to what's available. So what happens is when you get exposed to these really healthy fields of connection where presence and attunement is available, your body will change in response to that field. You don't have to make it change. You don't have to know what it's going to do, but it will. So I sit with people all the time. And what we will just, for example, focus on the fact that I'm here and I'm listening and I'm feeling with you. And if we just demonstrate that over and
Mhm.
over again, what actually shows up in people's consciousness changes. when there is someone who is here with me, my body responds and opens. It might open with mistrust or fear or confusion or whatever it is, but it opens. And as long as we can stay connected and we can stay able to feel what's happening, that opening is just going to happen more and more. So in meditation, the kind of opening often that is taught is like, if I can just accept or relax or not intrude upon my thoughts and feelings, there will be just this perpetual opening. And I think that's true. That is sort of universally true, that if I have some level of acceptance or non-attachment to what's happening in
Mm-hmm.
meditation, there's an opening that happens in the body. But you can think about this as a much more relational version of that. I believe if there's someone who is listening, my
Mm-hmm.
body will speak. My body wants to speak. It's designed to express, it's designed to feel, it's designed to have energy to move. And so when we put people in connection where there's someone really with them, our body will speak. There will be an opening because that's our blueprint. Our blueprint is actually to be in connection and to share and to express. And many of the things, or because even most of the things, all of the things, even perhaps that we're holding, are things that need to be expressed. So I don't just hold on to things for no reason. I hold on to things often because there's no one to tell, to share, to feel with. And so again, when someone's there, my body will start to do something different. And then I learn in reverse. By being cared for, my body learns how to express and to feel and to, you could say, let go.
Mm. You said over and over and over again. And I thought of, wow, the importance of consistency, the importance of repetition, because I assume that, at the beginning, it feels unfamiliar even to feel heard, to feel understood, to feel cared for. But if that person continues to stay in presence with us, exactly over and over and over again, our guards come down and we're able to trust their presence. So, can you tell us a little bit about the importance, your perspective on consistency?
Your description is really beautiful. I think I'd start with it in reverse. If in our world, there's so much trauma and disconnection
Mhm.
from our bodies and just from disconnection from our emotional experience. It's very common, as I've experienced, as many people experience, that our parents in our world, our teachers, the people that we grow up with, are not consistently present with us.
Mhm.
And so, what do I do? What does my body do when there's not consistent presence? It learns to manage that experience by shutting down, essentially, or limiting what is expressed, or having kind of advanced strategies, detachment strategies, how to manage connection. So, what we want to do is we want to put those strategies out of work because when I'm here, and when everything you experience is welcome, I don't need a strategy. I don't need to manage. I don't need to hold. So, for me, years and years of my developmental process of feeling isolated and mistrust are reversed by over and over again having someone be really present with me. And another way to do, like in physical terms, that you could envision this, it's like if a bridge is really stable, I
Mhm.
don't hesitate to walk over it. If a bridge is shaky, suddenly I don't know if I want to. It's intelligent to not maybe cross this bridge. So, a lifetime of insecure connection is going to mean that my body hesitates and manages my experience and doesn't share and is not fluid and is not alive. And so, if we just keep exposing people to this reality, it's like we can once again and again and again and again show to the body that this bridge is stable. It can hold
Mhm.
your weight and your presence and your feelings and your anger and your sadness and everything else. And we will become more and more confident to walk in it. My experience is that it's completely progressive. Like
Mhm.
the more the dose of you get of that, the more confident you become. And in this way, like whatever happened to you as a child, whatever your lessons you learned about connection and feeling and your will and your safety and your power and your ability to care for others, all of these things, it can be rewritten. It can be rewritten by us being present now, again and again and again. So we can update whatever life conditions confined us as children. They are not permanent barriers. They can be rewritten or updated by us being present now.
Mm. What a relief to hear that out loud, that we are not bound forever by our childhood, or by the experiences that we've endured over the years, and that we do have a choice at some point to shift that internal narrative and experience.
And I love to emphasize for people, like often there's a feeling in healing and awakening, like that's something that I need to do for myself. Like I should be self-sufficient in that. I should be able to love myself. I should be able to, care for myself. And I think children don't learn how to do any of those things independently. Children sit on their inheritance. If
Mhm.
they inherit an abundance of connection and love and safety, they are confident. If they don't, they're not. So no one gets these things independently. There's no human being that becomes safe or confident by themselves. And so I encounter a lot, people will say, yeah, but I should be able to do this for myself. And what I say is if we do this together over and over, it will be yours. Like we gift this to you. What we do together becomes you. It becomes yours. This is the foundation of your confidence, is actually what we do together. And so I'm inviting people to shift from self-reliance and self-improvement to interdependence. And I just keep emphasizing it works faster and more efficiently because that's actually our design. We are not separate. So I really invite people, I say it over and over, to lean into that. And to lean into that means you actually have to be around people who have the capacity to demonstrate that over and over again. It's not just an intellectual process. It's something that we develop in our nervous system and in our presence. I develop the capacity to be with you. And so that's something that I teach to everyone so that we can share in that presence and so all grow together.
You said intellectualize, and I thought, a lot of a lot of us, um, especially people who've been, reading the self-help books, listening to the podcasts, and the plethora of content out there on psychoeducation, on social media platforms, we can intellectually understand our wounds.
Yes.
We're like, okay, I get it. This comes from this, this comes from that root, but we're still getting triggered in the relationships. What bridges that gap?
Well, the first place that I will start is that being triggered is not a bad sign. What it actually means to be triggered is that energy that has been stored in you, some part of your nervous system that is holding the past, has been activated.
Hmm.
And that's how you heal. You heal by having that happen and having it released. Now, again, I'll make the distinction to sort of sell my method. In the developmental architecture model or in this proactive model, we don't wait for ourselves to get triggered for us to encounter this material. We move towards it together proactively. So let's say someone, does not feel safe. Instead of waiting to, be in a relationship and go, wow, I don't feel safe around my partner, and projecting on them and having to work backward and go, oh yeah, actually this has to do with my childhood. We actively examine, what was safety like? How is it for you to rest into your base? Do you feel safe?
Hmm.
And if they say no, we work through that now. So again, to start, being triggered or having stuff come up is not at all the problem. That's that's the way. And we can either move towards that intentionally or we can find it out along the way. And I can tell you, I've done a lot of both. And it's inevitable that you're going to get triggered and run into stuff.
Hmm.
But again, what it is that creates transformation, or what the movement from like understanding my wounds to healing my wounds, really has to do with how much I'm able to feel my life history in my body and to contact so that living history and be with it. So this is to say that my experience with my mother, my father, my experience as an infant, these are not in the past. So when I think about them, I'm thinking about the past. But my body, my
Mhm.
nervous system doesn't work like that. My body is the sum total of all of the moments of my life. My body is everything that I've ever experienced with. That's what it means to get triggered. It means that something in the past is actually alive in my body now. And so as long as that the past is unprocessed in me, I run into it. I run into the past over and over again when it is unprocessed. So unprocessed means that there's more energy that needs to move. That's
Mhm.
the basics of it. So when I get triggered, this is just a sign that more energy needs to move. It's not at all a negative thing. It's an opportunity for me to tune into my body and feel. And again, in a personal practice, we can do this. So whatever I get angry at my wife or something, and I go, oh, what am I feeling? I'm getting angry. I sink into my body and I release that. And that's beautiful. What I advocate for is that let's do that together. And whatever it is that you're feeling, I will receive it and feel it with you. And what happens is not only does that energy release in your body, it actually it does what it's designed to do, which is communicate.
Mhm.
It moves from you to me. Your fear, your shame, your anger is expressed and shared, which is what it was there to do in the first place. It was designed to tell your parent or your teacher or your sibling that you felt unsafe or that you felt scared, to create connection and to share what you are actually experiencing with the world, to share your inner experience with the world. That's the purpose of our energy. And so when we have someone sit with us, it moves really fast, really deeply, and often takes us even deeper into it. So with someone like me or people who have this orientation, we can learn to start from whatever the trigger is and really sink into the body to find its sort of source. And a metaphor for that is like the water stops running. I live in the woods, so a creek outside my house stops running. Where's the water stop running? Well, I walk up the creek until I find the break. There's a place where there's a kind of trauma in the creek. There's a stoppage of flow. And I have to walk upstream to find that. Once I find that, the water will flow. So similarly, I have to find in my developmental history, which means in my body, the source of my, like, where does this come from in me? And that's not an intellectual process. I don't think, well, this is about the time that da 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 da. It's actually a place in my nervous system, in my body, that I need to learn to access. And I do that by feeling. I do that by sinking into my body. I do that by learning to soften into the tension or contraction or frozenness that I'm experiencing and access sort of what is underneath, what is below. And when I can feel that and it can flow, then there's more flow in my nervous system. And there's a release of tension. There's a release of the stored past. There's the return of presence. And it's now a place where my history is integrated and alive rather than frozen. So for me, like as I sit here with you, there are many things that have happened in my life that I bring with you into this conversation. They are part of my body, they're part of my presence, they're part of my consciousness. And my job is to feel as many of them as I can so that when I come to you, my history is alive and processed rather than my body is like uh, a storage of unfelt experiences.
Mhm.
So again, every time I get triggered, that's an opportunity for me to become more embodied, to feel what needs to be felt, and to support that to move so that I can occupy my body in a much more fluid way.
So for those people, whether they don't have the opportunity to experience this deeply regulating presence that you're talking about of another person, in this case you, or when they're not in that space, when they're outside of that space, are there any daily practices or just in general practices that can help us learn even how to feel our feelings? Because I've
Absolutely.
heard this often of like, what does that even mean?
Absolutely. So whether you're listening to this podcast or you're reading a self-help book, or as you described earlier, whatever you're doing, you're actually building up as an adult, you're building up an interest and a witnessing and a kind of a motivation to even care about this in the first place. So for me, most of my life, it didn't even cross my mind that I had feelings that I could attend to. And then one
Mhm.
day I was like, huh, I've never really thought about that. I became an adult. I gained the ability to think about myself in these ways and to witness myself. And then I developed interest. So the most important thing that you can have is motivation and curiosity. That's that's the raw material of your ability to do anything in spirituality or in healing, is to know about, to have some understanding that this is important, and to be able to turn your attention towards yourself. So that attention can work within yourself in very, very powerful ways, often like an ideal parent that I describe relationally. As you strengthen your desire to know how you feel, to stay with yourself, you become a caring and loving resource that is willing to be with whatever is whatever is happening for you. So at first, feelings are scary, and I'm not so sure that I want to feel them. But over time, it's like I developed this will to heal, this will to know, this will to be with myself. And that is can give me a tremendous capacity to to tolerate discomfort, but it
Mhm.
also sends a signal to my body that there's someone that wants to know me. I want to know. And again, just like that ideal parent, as we cultivate that desire, I am motivated both through pain or curiosity. I'm motivated to actually know. I know I have trauma. I know I have unfelt feelings. And over time, listening to these podcasts or by having struggles in life, I strengthen my desire to know. And this becomes a resource that helps us really stay present and not get so lost in our thinking or in the world, but continue to return. What am I feeling now? What's happening in the present moment? And that's true for people who are learning to meditate. That's true for people who are learning to feel their feelings. Motivation grows over time. You feed it by listening to podcasts, by being inspired by stories of people who've had amazing experiences. You feed it by suffering, even sometimes. And as that grows, it becomes your primary resource.
Mm. And as that grows, is that how we start to experience and body change?
Well, I'll give you an example for myself. I heard someone say to me one day, maybe I was 25, they said something like, you can live in your body. And I remember I thought, like, what does that even mean? Like, it had never even crossed my mind that you could live or not live in your body. That is an option or a duality or a problem. Or I'd never considered that. And I
Mm.
remember walking one day and I just couldn't let go of that idea. Like, it was so interesting to me. And I remember I was walking and suddenly I felt myself feeling my legs. And I thought, wow, that's what they mean. They mean like actually feeling your body from the inside. So what created that embodied change? What created the ability for me to feel my legs in this moment was that I listened to somebody talk about it. I stayed curious. It kind of stayed with me. Like I needed to know. Like I couldn't let go of it. It wasn't just like information or a possibility that passed through me and I forgot about, but it stayed with me. So for me, for example, I might say something in this podcast like your whole developmental history is present in your body right now. Everything that has ever happened to you is present in you. You might hear that and go, "Huh, I don't know if that's true, but it just stays with me."
Mhm.
And then I need to know. And then I start paying attention more to my body and then I go, "Is that really true? Can I feel young right now? Can I feel what it was like for me to be a child?" And it's through this engagement and through this presence that progressively I make these little breakthroughs. Again, for me, it was feeling my legs. I just suddenly I go, oh yeah, I can feel actually that my energy came up out of my body into my head. Oh, I just left. Hey, I noticed that. I noticed that I left my body. Oh wow. And I gain in confidence and it becomes interesting. And this is for me what I would really emphasize is healing and awakening. It's fascinating. It's a really interesting thing to apply your intelligence and capacity to. And so as you kind of learn to sort of solve this problem or walk the path, you could say, you get drawn into it, you get pulled into it. Suddenly you're thinking about it and feeling it and more. And you wake up one day, you go from being like, I don't know how I feel, to waking up in the morning and being like, how do I feel right now? And change comes because you're able to ask the question and stay with yourself and listen. It doesn't come because, you know, necessarily you make it happen. It comes because you're paying attention, essentially. The more you pay attention, the more the more you're motivated to pay attention, the more you pay attention. And the more you pay attention, the more you see and feel. And then the more you expose yourself to people and ideas that really challenge what you know and what you have access to, this can kind of point you in the right direction. And again, that's a lot of what I do is I point people in a whole bunch of different directions.
So, so, so beautiful. Speaking of the work you do, how can the audience connect with you and work with you and learn more from you?
Yeah, the so just to name, like we've spent a lot of time talking about accessing the body and developmental trauma and feeling, and this is wonderful. This is my bread and butter. I also teach about awakening in different ways, awakening to the nature of reality and the higher dimensions of consciousness, and all the fancy things that exist in spirituality. This process is really the same. It's about being curious and learning to feel and learning to be present. But I teach all of that in groups and sometimes one-on-one. And in the show notes, I will put a link to my website and you can look at my offers. I run free meditations weekly where I invite people to sit, and I make content on social media that sort of advance my ideas and share what's really important to me and alive for me. So all that should be available in the show notes at the bottom of this page.
Yes, I will make sure they're all in the show notes. Thank you so much for sharing your light and your wisdom with us. And you have such a soothing voice. So I'm sure the meditation classes must be so grounding and regulating. So I highly recommend people to check it out. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your presence with us.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. And I wish all the best to the people listening.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Speak soon.